Hey there, awesome founders. I'm Stephen White with LeanMastery Incubator, and this is Building Lean. Building Lean is a series of workshops that cover the steps and activities your startup must take to build key business functions to sustainably generate revenue, get an investment, or join an accelerator, as well as how to stay ahead of the competition. Our workshops are inspired by leading authors and researchers on startup and scale methodologies, such as Eric Ries, Steve Blank, Bill Olet, and Reid Hoffman, as well as our experience working with hundreds of startups and by distilling the reasons why over 160 funded startups failed. And that's not all. We answer your burning startup questions related to how you can build your startup lean. Matter of fact, my business partner Shafique Pappa is patiently waiting to join us after this part of the workshop is over, as he'll answer questions you've already submitted related to patent filings, technical co-founders, and Kickstarter campaigns. If you're interested in growing your startup by building lean, hit the subscribe button now so you can receive the latest insights that will help you avoid mistakes that cost you time and money. For those of you who are new entrepreneurs just getting started on your idea, or even those of you who've read Eric Ries's book, The Lean Startup, cover to cover, you may be thinking, wait, Stephen, there are so many different ways to build a business. Why dedicate a show to lean? What's so special about it? As a founder, there are three variables that determine whether you will successfully convert your startup idea into a thriving business. Now, why are these three variables crucial to your startup success? Well, let's look at each one, beginning with number one, the startup process. This consists of the series of steps you'll take to actually build your business through each startup phase. Before you can sell millions of units of any product or service, you must first get market validation for your product. Then you must be able to repeatably sell and deliver your product. You do that next. And finally, when you've achieved that, you'll be ready to scale your business and reach sustainable growth. In each phase, there are crucial activities you must perform to complete the related key milestones that reduce the risk that your business will fail or grow so slow that it gets passed up by more nimble competitors. Effectively speaking, by implementing an optimal process, you would be able to detect and correct business model flaws early so you can avoid that awful choice of basically discussing with your team. Either we succeed making this one bet, or we run out of money trying. Oh, man, that's tough. Look, building a startup is not meant to be the equivalent of betting your life savings on a Las Vegas roulette wheel. So, are you following a systematic approach to converting your idea into a thriving business? Number two, the idea quality. A quality idea is one that solves a real problem for real customers rather than an invention that no one will buy, much less really use. Often, this aspect of building a business is described as customer problem fit. Thing is, that's not the only fit your startup must achieve. While there are several other fits, the next most important one is finding a solution that solves the problem better than any existing alternative. So, is your idea centered around a compelling problem, a real compelling problem, unsolved by existing alternatives? And is that problem solvable given current technical limitations? Number three, founder skills. There are countless examples of founders with tremendous, great, fabulous ideas, but unprepared to take the right actions and execute on their startup plans. Look, there are many reasons why this happens. For example, some we've heard from, some believe that you're just born with it, as in you must have an entrepreneur's DNA to be successful. Let me tell you, we believe that's wrong. Instead of worrying about your pedigree as a founder, you should be asking yourself, do I possess the analysis and decision making and organizational skills to get the job done? Look, if the answer to that question right now is no, That's actually totally fine. Many of us don't have the experience or skills yet, particularly when we're building our first business, which means you need to answer the question, do you know where you can acquire those skills while building your business? It's a little different pivot there, huh? Before we start looking at how the Lean process helps you manage each of these three variables, let's compare the Lean approach to building a business to the traditional approach, which is what many of us are probably more familiar with. See, the traditional approach reflects how we typically complete projects in a corporate setting, where we generally have enough of the resources necessary to do our work. Or it's how we work at school, when our goal is to get our assignment delivered, as pretty much the project scope has been already defined for us. Using the Lean approach, a founder can achieve market validation in as little as 6 to 12 weeks. Whereas when you perform the research to understand what's involved with the traditional approach, a founder typically doesn't achieve market validation for up to 3 years. Within those same 3 years, a founder following the Lean approach would have completed all 3 startup phases, which explains why some startups take off faster than others. While approach and methodology matters greatly when it comes to timeliness of outcomes, that's not the only reason why we believe Lean is the best approach. Cost. Cost is an important factor as well. Take the market validation phase as a simple example. With Lean, you're only building a functional prototype that validates if you're solving a compelling problem that is not being currently addressed by the market and whether your solution works and is technically feasible. Which means as you work through each milestone, you are performing the fatal flaw analysis to assess the quality of your idea. Using the Lean process helps you detect and correct fatal flaws if they are fixable. This is in contrast to the traditional approach, where a founder will build a fully ready to ship product up front. Because traditional founders cannot detect fatal flaws until they've produced and shipped a complete product, the risk of failure is extremely high. Effectively, the Lean process allows the Lean founder to find and fix fatal flaws while ensuring real customers provide the proof that the solution works for them, versus the traditional process, which forces the founder to ship unproven solutions to customers in order to recoup their sizable upfront investment. Effectively, they're hoping that they're successful. Matter of fact, it sounds to me like the traditional founder should be scratching lottery tickets about now. Now, I want to be upfront about something. We've done a lot of research into how successful and failed startups are built. One of the difficulties in comparing the traditional and Lean approaches is that the traditional approach lacks clear and consistent milestones, even for serial entrepreneurs. This is why founders typically focus, specifically traditional founders, they typically focus up front on what makes the most sense to them, the product, rather than first proving out that they understand the problem their customer wants solved and whether they'll be able to reach and sell to them. What does that do? Well, taking that approach creates a lot of risk. So the traditional founders begin to spend quite a bit of time attempting to engage investors and applying to accelerators prematurely, when they should be operating Lean by focusing on early traction, upskilling their decision-making abilities, and refining analysis skills. When you think about it from a traditional founder's perspective, though, their mentality makes sense. A traditional founder recognizes that they have a gap when it comes to analysis, decision-making, and prioritization skills. In a sense, they hope by securing an investor or getting lucky and joining an accelerator, they're hoping that they'll be able to leverage those networks to fill in their gaps. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. What's worse is that when traditional founders have burned valuable time and money and have become stuck or uncertain if they're on track as they pivot to achieving their goals, they turn to mentors or advisors in hopes of finding the flaws with their startup idea. That doesn't, in a sense, seem like a bad strategy until you realize that they could have been performing a fatal flaw analysis all along the way after each milestone. So, if you kind of summarize this, Based on our experience working with hundreds of founders and extensive research, entrepreneurs who follow the traditional approach typically make 3 common mistakes. Number 1, they work on the wrong activities that just don't matter at that time that they, especially up front. One way to look at it is what we see is these are time fillers that give founders the sense that they're accomplishing something when in fact they're not. And most likely they're budget wasters up front. Number 2, they work on tasks out of order. This is where bad advice guides a founder to build a product before they even know what features their potential customers want. Number 3, they don't focus on finding the fatal flaws that their idea suffers from and take the timely corrective action to overcome those flaws. Look, no startup idea is perfect at birth. None of them are. Even the best startups aren't. It's the velocity in which you identify and fix fatal flaws with your startup idea that's crucial to saving your valuable resources so you can grow quickly and stay ahead of competitors. All of these are reasons why we believe the lean approach is best, as it takes less time, costs significantly cheaper, and you get more done. Matter of fact, you do this with a whole lot less risk. Now, before we look at how the lean process works, let's consider a real-world example of a super successful founder who has built his startups using the lean process, even in the most capital-intensive industries around that most would consider impervious to a lean approach. So let's talk about one of the most technically challenging industries in the world, aerospace. When Elon Musk started SpaceX, he brought his startup experience and learnings from being a PayPal founder. Sure, it definitely didn't hurt that Elon had an exit from PayPal and quite a strong network of influential friends. But when it came to the inherent risk and billions required to build a private rocket company, even Elon's money wouldn't be enough to be successful alone. To achieve his massive goal of building an interplanetary launch vehicle, he had to first build SpaceX Lean. First thing SpaceX had to do was to understand the real problem its potential real early adopters had. Now, this is where many entrepreneurs get tripped up. They look at SpaceX having launched American astronauts to the space station or its stated goal of colonizing Mars and assume that SpaceX planned on NASA to be its initial customers. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. If SpaceX had taken that approach, it would have struggled mightily to meet all of NASA's requirements or to differentiate from many existing aerospace companies they're aggressively competing against. Instead, its early adopters were satellite companies that wanted to reduce the cost of launching their satellites in space. Once SpaceX understood the problem those customers experienced, it set off to design a rocket that could accomplish this goal while delivering a relative value 10 times better than existing alternatives. In this case, SpaceX developed a reusable rocket which would defray the considerable capital cost of producing each launch vehicle. But before building its initial reusable rocket, SpaceX had to prove that it first could build and launch a single-use rocket. While its first 3 rockets exploded, the lean approach enabled SpaceX to quickly learn from its failures and iterate through its designs until successfully launching its 4th rocket. The lean approach remains evident within SpaceX today, with it in its development of things such as the Starship rocket to get humans to Mars, and its deployment of the Starlink satellite system to provide global broadband internet service. In the lean process, the actions you take are designed to validate key business assumptions that are addressed through the Founder's Journey framework, which I'll cover during our next episode. Using a lean approach, a founder doesn't deploy capital until they have evidence that there's a market for the product or service they want to build. This also means that you shouldn't worry about pitching investors until you've validated that demand for your solution actually exists, as you won't need the capital to build your product or service until you have that proof. Now, these milestones and activities are organized into 3 startup phases. While it's tempting as founders to dream about the future of when you've built a successful startup, you should first understand the milestones you'll need to achieve in order for your dream to come true. These milestones relate to completing specific activities and reflect a distinct increase in the value of your business as you reduce the risk that your startup could fail due to a fatal flaw with your idea. During the first phase of startup development, market validation, a founder should focus on manually working through their key business assumptions to eliminate any fatal flaws. Once again, this takes about 6 to 12 weeks, and they'll know that they've achieved market validation when they've been able to attract 5 paying customers without even building a shippable version of their product or service. During the second phase, repeatable sales and delivery, a founder will again work through their business assumptions, but in this phase, they're automating their lead engine, sales engine, and production and delivery engine. They will have successfully completed this phase when they can repeatedly sell and deliver their product, as well as understand the costs involved. This takes about 6 months, which is when they're repeatedly generating $10,000 in monthly revenues. During the third phase, sustainable growth, the founder focuses on scaling their lead engine and sales engine, as well as their production and delivery of their product or service, all of which takes approximately 24 months. The founder will know that they've achieved sustainable growth when their revenues are growing at rates ranging from 25% annually or 10% month over month. Remember, following a lean approach enables you to complete all 3 startup development phases within the same exact time a traditional founder may complete the first development phase, and without all of the risks incurred, as well as all the costs and time wasted. So, how do you work through each phase? In each startup development phase, you complete a series of milestones that mark your progress to validate the key business assumptions you've made and help you course correct when you encounter a fatal flaw. There's one more thing about the lean process. There are many activities you can ignore. As a matter of fact, in lean, you can ignore all of these activities until you've achieved market validation. Once again, experienced entrepreneurs know this to be true. So let's return to my favorite founder with one more example. Over the years, I've known many founders who have attempted to build a car company to serve the electric vehicle market. This opportunity and need seems kind of obvious, right? So why haven't more EV startups been successful by now? When Tesla began, it didn't attempt to immediately mass produce a mid-tier car that millions would buy. No, not at all. Matter of fact, if you're unsure, just Google Elon Musk's Tesla Master Plan Volume 1. It put out in 2006. Actually, the 2016 update was pretty fascinating too. Tesla had to first prove that there was a market for electric vehicles beyond the niche products being put out by the big 3 automakers, which meant, once again, that Tesla had to understand who its real early adopters would be and the real compelling problem those potential customers wanted to solve. So why does that all matter? Well, since Tesla had to prove that it could even deliver on those initial sales, it meant that Tesla didn't need to waste valuable time and money to build or even acquire a factory, much less develop a sophisticated manufacturing and delivery process necessary for mass production, when it was only going to sell hundreds of its initial vehicle per year. Instead, Tesla saved its resources by assembling each Roadster in a garage behind its showroom, which, by the way, happened to have once been a Chevrolet dealership. Crazy stuff. So, in summary, using the lean process, successful entrepreneurs understand that they need to follow a plan that breaks down the steps to achieve their milestones, which helps them prioritize what they need to do each and every day. More importantly, successful founders know that this enables them to avoid all or nothing outcomes. Additionally, by working fast, a successful founder focuses on getting regular feedback from their customers, learning from that feedback, and then revising their product or service during each startup phase. By following the lean approach, successful founders seek out mentors who can help them evaluate any fatal flaws with their idea as they work through each milestone. The mentor and founders can easily make measurable progress, feel confident that they're on the right track, and quickly course correct when things go wrong. This is why you should focus on measurable milestones to guide yourself on what steps you should be taking to successfully build your business. During our next episode, we will introduce the Founder's Journey Framework, which is something I mentioned a little bit earlier. as we explore which methods successful founders follow to efficiently build their startups. Okay, now before I hand off to Shafique to answer your questions, if you're looking to change how you grow your startup by building lean and you find these workshops helpful, please click the subscribe button nearby and give us a like, or drop us a positive comment, or leave a question that you want answered. If you know of other founders or product managers who could benefit from our workshops, please share this video with them so they too can build their startups lean and avoid mistakes that cost time and money. Building Lean is brought to you by the LeanMastery Incubator. LeanMastery helps founders convert their ideas into a thriving business fast and helps business owners avoid mistakes that cost time and money. Learn more about how you can become a LeanMastery Incubator member at leanmastery.co. Thank you for watching, and now over to you, Shafique, to get us started with answering all of y'all's burning startup questions.
Hi everyone, Shafique here. Now that you all know why building lean can be the difference between success and failure, we're going to pivot to answering questions submitted by founders. Steven, are you ready with our first question?
Yeah, actually I am. Let me see here. So our first question comes from an early stage founder who's working on achieving market validation for her startup idea. Her question is a common one that you and I hear from new entrepreneurs. And that question is simply, when should I file for a patent?
That's a great question. So I guess it depends where you are on your journey. For first-time patent filers, filing a patent can be a long, drawn-out process. And of course, that's especially true if you end up hiring someone to help you. So it makes sense you file a patent only when you have proof that your solution is market viable. What does that mean? Well, market viable means your patent can be used by you or others in a commercial product, in which case you can monetize the patent. Now, we generally discourage founders from filing patents until they have been able to validate the market viability of their invention. Now, the only exception to that rule is when you're filing a patent on a core scientific discovery that can be easily exploited by and serves a large and growing market. Let me see if I can think of a good example here. Let's say, so how about solid state batteries? Let's say your patent, you have invented a battery that can be charged in just 5 seconds. And of course, it can be recharged for 1 million cycles. And also has the density at 2,000 watt-hours per kilogram. Oh, and better yet, it only costs $10 per kilowatt hour to manufacture. Now, an invention like that, you should run to the patent office to try and file that patent. Of course, most founders don't have those types of patents. They have patents that are trying to, especially in the technology world, you're filing patents around markets that don't really exist. You're trying to create markets. And when markets aren't easily exploitable for non-existent markets, filing patents early is a fool's errand, because the chances you get to monetize are zero. Like an example of that would be, think about 3D printers. All the people who filed their patents in the 90s never really got to monetize the 3D printing technology, as the market just this year now is starting to become robust for 3D printing technology in manufacturing. Prior to that, it was just for hobbies, so there really wasn't a whole lot of money in it. But starting this year, next year, it's supposed to grow 30% a year, and the market's finally here. So if you file a patent in that established market, you're going to be able to monetize it. But prior to that, it didn't make much sense. So what do you think, Steven? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. That's excellent. So let's jump to the next question. And this comes from a founder who recently completed a successful Kickstarter campaign where they were able to exceed their campaign goal of $30,000, which is fantastic. So congrats out there. That's an achievement. Now, Shafique, this founder is asking, how do I generate sales now that my Kickstarter campaign was successful? Oh, and let's see. And the founder clarifies that I'm struggling to ensure that I want to build sales momentum while also delivering their Kickstarter rewards, which sometimes gets overlooked.
Okay, so that's a two-part question. Let me see if I can kind of get my head around that one. All right, so done the right way, Kickstarter is a great vehicle for getting market validation. Unfortunately, most founders who use Kickstarter to get market validation end up skipping many vital steps necessary to establish a beachhead market. They get a false sense of market acceptance when their mom, dad, and of course all their friends purchase the product out of the, not out of the fact that they need the product, but they just like the founder. So, when you beg your mom to buy your product, of course she's going to buy it. So many successful Kickstarter campaigns, even when they're successful, fail to make their products become mainstream simply because the founders never did the hard work to figure out the channel to reach their customers, or develop a sales engine, or work through the production and delivery engine, as well as develop the scale thesis. By never really taking the steps necessary, these founders are frustrated when their product sales drop and they cannot figure out how to build out the key business functions that every business needs to succeed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's one thing, though, that we've talked about before is related to key business functions. Can you take a moment to elaborate a little bit on those?
Yeah, that's a good catch. The three key business functions, I think you mentioned, just a reminder, it was in your presentation. The three key business functions are lead engine, sales engine, and the product production delivery engine. Every founder has to understand how to develop a product is also developing these three key business functions, without which there is no business.
All right, Shafique, I think we have time for one last question. Let me see. Great. Yeah, this time it comes from a non-technical founder. And his question is, when should I bring on a technical co-founder, and what should I look for in a technical co-founder? Okay, once again, that's a two-parter, and that's on you. I'm going to let you jump in and take this one.
Okay, so let me kind of answer this again by delineating the answer into two different, let's kind of make sure we understand why we need a technical co-founder first. So it kind of depends. Not every startup needs a technical co-founder. So if you're, for example, if you're focused on a consumer packaged goods category with a product containing no electronics, then it's not necessary for you to have a co-founder. A technical co-founder only makes sense when you're trying to build a product that heavily relies on ongoing development or integration of technology. In that case, bringing on a co-founder after, so you also ask when they should bring it on, after you have confirmed the problem, the channel, and the price assumptions. Then it makes a lot of sense to bring on the technical co-founder when you're trying to build out the functional prototype. Of course, in some instances, you can even delay it further, because you may be able to get the functional prototype built by simply finding off-the-shelf solutions that can help you do that. For example, we had a local startup that was able to build out a functional prototype by simply using Instagram as a way of bringing buyers and sellers together for shoes. They were trading in these very expensive, one-of-a-kind shoes made by Nike and so on that were autographed, and they created a marketplace using Instagram. Now, the second part of your question was, what should you look in a co-founder? And that's a great question as well. In that case, what I would say is that aside from obviously having the technical skills, what you want in a co-founder, especially a technical co-founder, is some soft skills that are a little harder to come by, but really essential for your success. And what we talk about is that you want a technical co-founder that has good analysis skills. They know how to prioritize their work, and they are good decision makers. So let me elaborate on a little of each. So analysis means they can quickly understand what the problem that they need to solve is. When you're doing a startup, there are hundreds of problems. Aside from the main problem you're solving for the customer, you have a lot of business challenges to solve. And your ability to quickly analyze what's important and focus in on that is essential, and especially analyzing the data you're getting from the marketplace. So analysis is a very critical skill. The second one is prioritization. Again, you have to be able to ignore things because you're just overwhelmed with what you have to do. So if you feel like you have to do everything and you don't know how to prioritize, then you're not going to be very successful. And same with decision making. there are lots of decisions you make, and some decisions you can recover from and others you can't. So good decision making and having that instinct for trying something but hedging your bets is also essential. Not doing constantly all in or nothing. It's like the old Texas Hold'em strategy. You can't go all in every single time. Sometimes you have to be able to hedge your bets and bet on a couple of things and see which one works out. So as a founder, looking for those soft skills in a co-founder is essential. I hope that answers the question, and that's it. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that one, Stephen.
That's great. I loved the. I forgot about the guys who used Instagram to basically validate the market without having to write any code themselves. So that's terrific. All right, if you're looking to build your startup lean, please click the link nearby or drop your question in the comments below. Also, please subscribe to our channel so you can receive immediate access to our latest episodes and updates. Building Lean has been brought to you by the LeanMastery Incubator. LeanMastery helps founders convert their ideas into a thriving business fast and helps business owners avoid mistakes that cost time and money. You can learn more about how you can become a LeanMastery Incubator member at leanmastery.co. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to helping you be successful in pursuing your startup dreams by building lean.